Hello, fellow readers and booktubers. About 2 weeks ago, I noticed a tag that had been posted by MJ at Reading This Life. It was called the Bookish Secrets Tag. And she had noted that the original tag was created by Becky at Book Reviews with Becky about a month prior to that. And I was looking at the prompts, and they look kind of interesting, so I thought I gave some thought to some responses to them. I'd like to share those with you now. However, when I was looking at the prompts, some of them seemed kind of familiar, and I went back on all my videos to see if I'd ever responded to this particular tag before, and I hadn't. Or maybe some of the prompts were worded differently and showed up in a different context than someone else's tag. I know I've done that when I've posted tags. I've kind of borrowed some other people's ideas and incorporated them into my own tag. But nothing. I couldn't find anything. So I'm wondering if maybe someone had tagged me, and I went through the prompts and was thinking up some answers for them, and I got distracted and forgot about it. Not unusual. Or perhaps I'm just suffering from the a case of deja vu of a remarkably long duration. I'm not sure. But I thought I'd go through the prompts. Thank you, Becky, and thank you, MJ. And so here we go. This is the Bookish Secrets tag. The first prompt: have you ever pretended to like a book when you really didn't? Not that I recall. I'm pretty transparent in my likes and dislikes of books. If I don't like a book, I don't usually make a big fuss about it. You know, I admire anyone who can write a book. And of course, if you can get it published, I admire you even more. And if I don't like what you've done, I'm not going to jump all over you because of it or what you've created. If I do like it, everyone knows. If I don't like it, I won't say anything. But I would definitely not pretend to like a book that I don't like. If I don't like a book, I just rarely say anything about it at all, unless it's egregiously horrible. In fact, there's another prompt along here that's going to allow me to talk about a book I didn't like. Anyway, prompt number 2. Have you ever reread a book that you liked and didn't like it the second time? As a matter of fact, I recently reread a book, but it wasn't for the second time. This is the 5th or 6th time I've read this book. And the previous times that I had reread it, the previous 4 times I'd reread it, I liked it a lot. But this last time, which was just about a month ago, I didn't care for it at all. And the book was this. It's a very popular work, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, or the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. I've read this book, not this particular translation, but I've read other translations of this many times over the years. I've always enjoyed it. I have found great comfort in it and great insight. For some reason, when I read it just about a month ago, it just didn't work for me. And I'm not blaming the translation. The translation is magnificent. It's right on target. But I think it was because between the last time I read this and the more recent time I read this, I finally got around to reading Epictetus, which this, to me, really captures the ideas of Stoicism with incredible insight, practicality. Whereas Marcus Aurelius, what I noticed about this time, it seems very repetitive. He's got maybe 3 or 4 interesting ideas, and he keeps repeating them. He just words his insights differently every time. It just there was nothing there for me. Maybe I've just read it too many times. But as far as Stoicism is concerned, which is a fascinating philosophy, it seems to be very popular lately. I would not recommend this. Most people would. This is considered one of the great statements of Stoicism. I would say, not so much Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor. He was engaged in various military campaigns at the time he put this together, so maybe he was a little distracted. But if you're looking for a good statement of Stoicism, I go with Epictetus, much better. But anyway, the prompt was, ever reread a book that you liked and didn't like it the time you reread it? Marcus Aurelius' Meditations is the one that leaps to mind. Do you ever skim through a book? No, at least not in fiction, especially if it's well-written fiction. I like to, savor the sentences and the descriptions and things like this. Sometimes if it's a nonfiction work, especially if it is, say, a survey history of a civilization or a particular group of people, sometimes there'll be that chapter that deals with the economic structures of a culture, and there's a lot of numbers in that chapter. I'll read it, but I'll read it quickly just to get on to the more interesting things. But generally speaking, I don't skim books. Number 4, have you ever bought a book without realizing you already owned it? No, that hasn't happened to me, but it has happened to a friend of mine. Number 5, have you ever read a book you wouldn't normally pick because, let me try that again. Number 5, have you ever read a book you wouldn't normally pick because your book club chose it? Well, I don't belong to any book clubs. Reading for me has always been a very personal, almost monastic pastime. So no, I've never belonged to a book club where a book was chosen that it's just a moot question. However, I've been on BookTube now for, not quite a year, but I noticed there's a lot of group get-togethers and things like that. So maybe I might join one of those in the near future, and maybe then I'll be faced with this challenge where a book will be chosen that I'm not interested in reading, but because I belong to the club, I'm going to have to read it. But that hasn't happened to me yet. Number 6, is there a book everyone loved but you hate it? This kind of goes back to have you ever pretended to like a book that you didn't? Pretended to like a book that you did that everybody else did. Actually, 2 spring to mind. One of them was from 2023, Eleanor Caton's Burnham Wood. This was a really popular book just 2 years ago. It was on bestsellers lists. Usually, to have a book on a bestsellers list isn't enough to goad me into buying it and reading it. But this got really great reviews from reviewers and critics who I trust and whose opinions I respect. Even Barack Obama put this on his reading list. And Obama's got great taste in books, in literature. So I thought, well, it comes highly recommended by some people who I admire and whose opinions I respect. And I read this with a sinking feeling. I don't know, it seemed kind of preachy to me. The ending seemed like it didn't fit with the rest of the book. I don't want to give anything away. I'm sure a lot of you have read it and enjoyed it, but I gave it a lot of time, and I just didn't connect with this one at all. The other book that came to mind, and this one, I think everybody in the world likes this other book but me, A Gentleman in Moscow. I read this about a year or two after it came out. It must have been around. It was published in 2016. I must have read it around 2018 or something, with high hopes, and I don't know. As I recall, it's about a Russian aristocrat who somehow improbably survives the Russian Revolution, and he lives in some penthouse apartment in Moscow while Lenin and Stalin and all the rest of them are doing their bloody work, and somehow he's kind of untouched by it. As I recall the story, and it just follows his life through that, and I just couldn't buy into that. I don't know. It didn't work for me. Although I know it was incredibly popular. I think they even made a TV series out of it, or they're going to, or maybe a movie. God bless them all. And for those of you who read this and loved it, I know, I'm not sure the author's name, how it's pronounced. Is it Tolles? I know he's written some other books that have gotten great reviews. I'm willing to give him another chance. So he's a good writer. That wasn't the issue. I just didn't buy into the story. But everyone else seemed to, so I don't know, maybe this is something about me. Have you ever liked a movie better than the book? Well, this is going to get me in trouble, probably. The first thing that came to mind was Lord of the Rings. And the movie I felt was probably the greatest film. I'm talking about the trilogy, the greatest film ever. After I saw all 3 parts of that, I didn't feel like I ever had to go to the movies ever again. And then I thought back to the book, Tolkien's great epic, and I did not recall enjoying the book in the same way that I enjoyed the film. But the more thought I gave to this, I realized that those were 2 different experiences. The book is all about language and creating visions in another world through the use of language, and Tolkien was a master at this kind of a thing. The movie is a visual experience, and it's all about creating other worlds through a vision, the vision of Peter Jackson, the director. And so to compare the 2 is comparing apples and oranges. I like apples, and I like oranges. So have you ever liked a movie better than the book? It's not fair for me to say that I like Lord of the Rings. I like the movie better than the book, because they're 2 different things. So outside of that, Generally speaking, books are usually better, I think, because you get into the characters a little more. But any particular titles, I don't leap to mind at the moment. Have you ever borrowed a book and not returned it? Or has anyone ever borrowed a book from you and not returned it? I've always returned every book I've ever borrowed from anybody. I have lost some books, disappeared. I don't loan out books anymore. I used to be pretty generous with that. And then quite a few years ago, I realized that some of the books that I'd loaned out, it was very clear it was a loan. I never saw those books again. So I return books, but some people I know do not return them. Although I should add that the people that I loan books to that never returned those books, I never hear from those people at all anymore. And I'm talking 20, 30 years ago. So, have you ever read a series out of order? Generally speaking, I don't read a lot of series. The last series I read, and this is going to date me, I know, was the Travis McGee series, which I really enjoyed. But this was back in the 1980s. And I think when I first started reading the Travis McGee books, I was reading them out of order. And in fact, the first, I don't know how many are in the series, maybe 30? It's a pretty long series. I think about the first half of that series, as I recall, it didn't matter if you read them out of order. As you got near the end of the series, though, there was this overarching plot development that went from book to book. And so the latter part of the series, you really did have to read in order. By that time, I had figured that out. And then I did start to read them in order. Have you ever spoiled a book for someone? Never intentionally, at least not in terms of giving away any plot twists. I've never done that. I might have mentioned this, I did one time someone told me they were going to read a particular book that I had read. And without giving it much thought, I said, "Oh, don't waste your time. It's a piece of garbage." And then I realized, oh no, maybe you'll like it. So I kind of backed off on that one. But no, I try to avoid the spoilers thing. And prop number 11, just tag some creators. So I will do that. And that's all I've got for you today. I want to thank Becky for creating this tag, and MJ hadn't tagged me. It just showed up on my YouTube. But I think a few other people have responded to this one as well. It's really good. It's a really interesting tag, and I really enjoyed this. That's it for now. Keep reading and stay strong.